If you observe carefully, there's something happening in the global economy that most people can't see. This isn't a sensationalist prediction. It's the logical consequence of forces that have been in motion for years. We're approaching a moment in history where money as we know it could lose value at an accelerated pace. And most Americans, especially those between 40 and 80 years old who have spent decades building their savings, aren't prepared for what might happen. History is an excellent teacher. And when we study the patterns of the past, one truth becomes clear. Periods of greatest economic change always catch people by surprise, not because the signs weren't there, but because it's more comfortable to believe that what has always worked will continue working forever. Today, we're going to explore why 2026 could represent a crucial inflection point and what is the only truly effective strategy to protect your wealth in this new environment. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you. The history of currency is fundamentally the history of cycles. Over the past 500 years, all major world reserve currencies have eventually lost their dominant position. The Venetian ducat, the Dutch florin, the British pound all followed the same basic pattern. First, there's a period of ascension. A nation develops a competitive advantage, whether through innovation, trade, or military power. Its currency becomes globally desired. Then comes stability. For decades, sometimes centuries, this currency serves as the pillar of the global financial system. Finally, there's decline, pressures accumulate, debt grows, relative productivity diminishes, and eventually a new order emerges. Currently, the US dollar is in the position that the British pound occupied at the beginning of the 20th century, dominant but facing growing pressures. If you understand incentives, you understand behavior. And the incentives today are aligned in a way that favors significant changes in the global monetary system. Consider these facts. American national debt has surpassed $33 trillion. This represents more than 120% of GDP, a level historically associated with confidence crises. Interest payments on the debt now consume more than 15% of all federal tax revenues. As interest rates rise, this percentage can only increase. Simultaneously, other countries, especially China and Russia, are actively working to reduce their dependence on the dollar in international transactions. This doesn't mean the US dollar is about to collapse tomorrow, but it means we're entering an era of monetary uncertainty we haven't seen in decades. To understand why 2026 could be crucial, we first need to understand how money's value actually works. Money has no intrinsic value. Paper currency is just that, paper. Its value comes entirely from collective confidence that it can be exchanged for real goods and services. This confidence is based on three fundamental pillars: political stability, fiscal discipline, and economic productivity. People need to believe that the government issuing the currency will remain stable and fulfill its obligations. The government must demonstrate the ability to control its spending and debt within reasonable limits. And the economy must be capable of generating enough real value to justify the amount of money in circulation. When any of these pillars weakens, confidence in the currency diminishes. And when confidence diminishes, the real value of money diminishes with it. This doesn't happen linearly or predictably. In fact, loss of confidence in a currency often happens abruptly, what economists call a Minsky moment. Imagine a dam. For years, water pressure can gradually increase. Small cracks appear, but the overall structure remains solid, until suddenly the entire dam gives way all at once. This is how monetary crises work. If you observe current economic data carefully, you'll see that pressure is building. Inflation, even if temporarily controlled, has demonstrated that the monetary system can become unstable quickly. Central banks were forced to print unprecedented amounts of money to avoid a depression during the pandemic. This extra money hasn't disappeared. It's in the economy, creating pressures that haven't been fully realized yet. At the same time, political polarization in the United States is reaching levels we haven't seen since the Civil War. The government's ability to make difficult decisions about spending and debt is being tested in ways that worry investors around the world. To understand how this might affect you, let's examine some historical examples of countries that went through significant monetary transitions. The case of Argentina is particularly relevant. In the 1990 seconds, the Argentine peso was artificially pegged to the US dollar at a 1-to-1 rate. For years, this created apparent stability and prosperity. Imagine a middle-class Argentine family in 2000. They had bank savings equivalent to $50,000, enough for a comfortable retirement by local standards. In December 2001, the Argentine government was forced to abandon this parity. Overnight, their savings lost 70% of their real value. What should have been a secure retirement turned into a struggle for survival. This didn't happen because people made bad decisions. It happened because they trusted that the monetary system would remain stable. Turkey's experience is equally instructive. Between 2013 and 2021, the Turkish lira lost more than 80% of its value relative to the dollar. A Turkish family that kept their savings in liras watched their purchasing power evaporate gradually, then rapidly. But those families that diversified their savings, keeping part in dollars, part in euros, and part in real assets like real estate or gold, managed to preserve much more of their wealth. Now, you might think, but these are developing countries. This can't happen with the US dollar. Consider the case of the British pound in 1967. For decades, the pound had been one of the world's most stable and respected currencies. London was the global financial center. In November 1967, the British government was forced to devalue the pound by 14% overnight. British families who kept their savings entirely in pounds lost significant purchasing power instantly. Those who had diversified into other currencies and real assets were much better protected. The lesson isn't that the US dollar is doomed to the same fate. The lesson is that no currency is immune to fundamental economic forces. And when you understand incentives, the pressure to finance growing government spending, the temptation to use monetary policy to solve structural problems, you understand why even the strongest currencies can face periods of instability. Now, let's translate these historical principles to the practical reality of most Americans. If you're 50 years old and have $500,000 in retirement savings, primarily held in bank accounts, CDs, and US government bonds, you're taking a concentrated risk you might not realize. It's not that these investments are bad. It's that they're all denominated in the same currency and subject to the same systemic pressures. Consider a plausible scenario. A combination of geopolitical and fiscal pressures forces a significant devaluation of the dollar between 2025 and 2026. Not a total collapse, just a 20-30% loss of relative value compared to other currencies and real assets. For an American who never travels or buys imported products, this might seem irrelevant. But in modern reality, almost everything we consume has global components. Your electricity bill reflects the global price of oil and natural gas. Your medications, many of which are produced overseas, become more expensive. Your food, which depends on imported fertilizers and global commodities, increases in price. Your cell phone bill, which includes semiconductor components produced in Asia, goes up. Your health insurance, which needs to cover increasingly expensive medical equipment, raises premiums. In other words, even if your bank balance remains numerically the same, your real purchasing power, your ability to maintain the same standard of living, diminishes significantly. And if you're approaching retirement, you don't have time to wait for the market to recover or to earn back what you lost. This isn't an argument for panic, it's an argument for preparation. The good news is that there are historically proven ways to protect your wealth during periods of monetary instability. The only truly effective way to protect your money in an environment of monetary uncertainty is through intelligent diversification. Not diversification in the traditional sense of 60% stocks, 40% bonds, That's diversification within the same monetary system. I'm talking about diversification across different value systems. First, keep a percentage of your savings in currencies of countries with superior fiscal discipline to the United States. The Swiss franc, Canadian dollar, and even the euro, despite its problems, can offer protection against specific US dollar devaluation. This doesn't mean you should bet against the dollar. It means you shouldn't bet exclusively in favor of it. Second, gold isn't an investment, it's insurance against monetary uncertainty. For more than 2,000 years, gold has maintained relatively stable purchasing power through political crises, wars, and regime changes. This doesn't mean its price doesn't fluctuate. It means that over time, it tends to preserve real value. Silver, although more volatile, historically follows gold during periods of monetary uncertainty and can be more practical for smaller transactions. An allocation of 5 to 10% of your wealth in physical precious metals, not papers representing metals, can provide valuable protection. Third, well-located real estate, agricultural land, and even art or antiques can preserve value during inflationary periods. The key is choosing assets that have intrinsic utility, things people will need regardless of which currency is being used. Fourth, stocks of companies that generate revenues in multiple currencies and possess real assets can offer natural protection against the valuation of a specific currency. A company that produces food, energy, or essential technology can maintain its value even if the currency of the country where it's based weakens. Finally, although highly volatile, some established cryptocurrencies can serve as a hedge against inflationary monetary policies. Bitcoin, specifically, was designed to have a limited supply, a characteristic that makes it conceptually opposite to traditional fiat money. This doesn't mean you should put your retirement savings in Bitcoin. It means that a small allocation, 2 to 5%, can provide protection against extreme scenarios of monetary devaluation. The fundamental rule here is gradualism and discipline. Don't make drastic changes all at once. The financial world punishes extremes. If you currently have 100% of your assets in US dollars, consider gradually moving to a structure like 60-70% in US dollars, 10-15% in foreign currencies or international investments, 5 to 10% in precious metals, 10-15% in real assets, and 2 to 5% in established cryptocurrencies. This transition should happen over 12 to 18 months, allowing you to learn about each investment category and make informed decisions. There's a fundamental difference between pessimism and preparation. Pessimism is believing that bad things are inevitable and there's nothing you can do about it. Preparation is understanding that changes are inevitable and taking rational measures to be ready for different scenarios. History teaches us that apparently stable systems can change more rapidly than we expect, but it also teaches us that those who prepare adequately don't just survive these changes, they often prosper during them. If you observe carefully the past 50 years, you'll see that periods of greatest wealth creation often coincided with periods of greatest economic uncertainty. This isn't coincidence. It's consequence. When old systems break down, new systems emerge. And those who understood the changes that were coming positioned themselves to benefit from the new reality. I'm not suggesting you speculate or take unnecessary risks. I'm suggesting you recognize the risks you're already taking, mainly the risk of keeping all your savings denominated in a single currency during a period of growing monetary pressure. True wealth doesn't come from correctly predicting the future. It comes from being prepared for multiple possible futures. And the best preparation is intelligent diversification based on fundamental principles that have worked throughout history. The time to act is now, not because something terrible will happen tomorrow, but because adequate preparation takes time. If a significant monetary crisis occurs in 2026, people who protected themselves will be in much better position than those who waited until the signs became obvious to everyone. And if this crisis doesn't happen, if the US dollar remains stable and dominant for more decades, you'll still have a more robust and diversified portfolio capable of facing any type of economic uncertainty. Intelligent preparation is never a mistake. Complacency often is. If you understand the principles, you understand that protecting your wealth isn't about predicting the future perfectly. It's about being prepared for the forces we know are in motion. And these forces, fiscal pressures, geopolitical changes, technological evolution, won't simply disappear because we prefer not to think about them. History is an excellent teacher. And the most important lesson it teaches us is simple. Those who prepare prosper, while those who assume tomorrow will be like today are often caught by surprise. The choice, as always, is yours. But remember, in economics, as in life, it's not about being the smartest in the room. It's about being the most prepared when the situation changes. And the situation always changes. The only question is, will you be ready?